Down in his luck, college freshman Gibb is about to undertake a 3,000-mile journey to meet a girl who is a sure thing. Unexpectedly joining him on this trip is Allison, and the two simply do not get along. As the road becomes harder to travel, Gibb and Allison find themselves attracted to one another. Will they run out of miles before their relationship can develop? This is Find That Film, The Sure Thing.
Welcome to Find That Film. Here, we introduce you to films you've missed. Maybe it's old, maybe it's weird, or maybe you just don't like that actor. Let Two Geeks in Bed convince you to find that film.
Welcome back to Find That Film. I am Mammoth Biz.
And there we go.
We are Two Geeks in Bed from twogeeksinbed.com, the internet's only non-porn website with its only non-porn podcast. Find That Film. This is episode 19 of season 3, The Sure Thing. I realized we told you we were going to cover, what piece of shit movie was that? Fraternity Vacation. Yeah, we reviewed it, and one of us might have been looking at it through rose-colored glasses. Okay, it was me. You've never seen that movie before, right?
Right. Well, okay. I think I may have, but beside the point, I don't want to say that it's not a movie worth watching, because if you do happen to run across Fraternity Vacation, or just on a random whim, we want to go watch it, you will enjoy it. It's just maybe not, a 10.
We rarely have 10s on this show.
That's true.
It's just that it was such a run-of-the-mill example of the genre it's in. If you're in the mood for that kind of spring breaky, nudity for no reason, drunken frat boy movie, there's a lot better examples of it out there.
Yeah. And
that you have to want to watch that particular niche to want to watch Fraternity Vacation.
It does hold some novelty casting you may enjoy, so if you want to, go look for it.
I absolutely adored everything Tim Robbins did in that movie.
Yeah.
So, much more so than in this movie, since he appears in this movie as well. But I think that was by design. They went out of their way to make him kind of unlikable in this movie.
Yes, they did.
So let's talk about the stats for The Sure Thing.
All right, so released March 1st of 1985, directed by Rob Reiner.
Yeah.
So, it's probably quality. Written by Stephen L. Bloom and Jonathan Roberts. Produced by Henry Winkler.
Hey.
Sorry. Andrew Scheinman and Roger Birnbaum.
Birnbaum.
Oh, Birnbaum. Sorry, I did not read that correctly.
It does look like an M there, doesn't it?
Distributed by Embassy.
Embassy Pictures.
Music by Tom Scott. The genre is comedy, road movie. Credit cards are for emergencies.
I've seen plenty of that genre before.
I would have had spiky-haired John Cusack as my genre. But anyway. PG-13.
Too many movies.
Runtime, 95 minutes. Budget of about $4.5 million and returns around $18 million.
Yeah, that's pretty good return. So we'll talk about why we're actually talking about this movie here in a second. Normally we don't talk about movies that have done that well financially. And this one did pretty well. But, but there's a reason we're suggesting it.
Exactly. So, sorry, I just mentioned John Cusack. It's starring John Cusack as Walter Gibson, Daphne Zuniga as Allison Bradbury, Anthony Edwards as Lance, Nicholas Sheridan as The Sure Thing, Tim Robbins as Gary Cooper. That's right, I said Gary Cooper. Lisa Jane Persky
Not the dead one.
as Mary Ann Webster, and Vivica Lindfors as Professor Tubb.
Vivica.
Yes.
Yeah. We were talking about Fraternity Vacation, and Roger Ebert gave it a 1 star. He said if he could give it lower than that, he would. And it's because it was playing with half a deck, and the half was for the men. All of the women in it were objects.
Yes.
Meanwhile, we switch over to The Sure Thing, and Nicholas Sheridan's character's name is The Sure Thing.
Yes.
That's not an object at all.
But not every woman in the movie is an object.
That's true. Well, not every woman in that movie is an object either.
Yes, that's true.
Let's talk about
she even turns out to have a personality.
Agreed. Maybe we should have done Fraternity Vacation. Anyway, let's talk about our first impressions with seeing the movie. This was one of the movies that my mother dropped me and my brother off at the theater to see while she would go attend college classes to get her nursing degree. In 1985, I was 10 years old, so old enough, I guess.
Yeah.
To go see this movie. I liked it when I was a kid. I thought it was pretty funny. I think I laughed more at the mooning scene than I did anything else at 10 years old. I've come to appreciate it more as an adult, and particularly John Cusack's performance. When we were watching it the other day, I could not stop laughing at the shit he was saying. It is so bizarre. that you have to think they let him come up with some of his own shit because you've heard him say similar things in other movies. So,
I watched this on VHS at somebody's house. I can't recall whose, or for that matter when, but it was an owned VHS tape, not a rented one. So I'm going to say it was probably fall of 86 or maybe 87 when I watched
bought
this.
VHS masters in 86 and 87? Did these
people
people have money? Money?
Everyone had more money than we did growing
Who the
up.
hell liked the Sure Thing enough to buy it in 1986?
I'm just saying, it was an actual owner. It was in their little VHS tape drawer that you pulled out from under the TV. It was in that thing. It wasn't the rental sitting on top of the table.
I don't think you're remembering the years right, but we have run into that problem in the past.
It was at least 87. Okay, I grant you that. Just based on the timeline of VHS tape releases.
All right, so let's talk about what is good about the Sure Thing, and luckily there are a lot of sure things about the Sure Thing. Nicholas Sheridan isn't though. Oh, don't give me shit for my segues. Anyway, chief among this for me is John Cusack and Daphne Zuniga's chemistry. Which you really have to see this movie to believe that they would be able to work this well together. Given that I think he was 16 at the time when they were filming, and she was 20 or 21 years old. Which can work. You can be a little creepy about it.
Yeah, it was 4 years difference. Still a little awkward.
I think, there are a handful of movies where the leads, you get the idea that the leads both hate each other and end up actually falling in love. Their chemistry is that good. And in the same movie. And in that kind of niche, that little collection there, I would put Claudette Colbert and Clark Gable, of course, what is clearly one of the inspirations for this movie.
The gold standard.
Right. It Happened One Night. And D.B. Sweeney and Maura Kelly from
Cutting Edge.
The Cutting Edge.
Yeah, so again, another brilliant pair.
Yeah, their chemistry is amazing. Their chemistry is better than that movie is, really. That's not the case here, but because they didn't really seem to function that well in solo scenes. These two do. These two, when they're not together on screen, the movie doesn't just fall apart.
Right.
So those are two really good examples, and I think you can add Zuniga and Cusack to that list. It's a shame, I think, that they didn't work together more. Their timing is perfect, and I'm more so hers, because you know what John Cusack can do. He's been doing it since 16 Candles, and his timing has always been right on. And hers was the unproven one, and she you saw it in Spaceballs, you see it here. You see it begin to develop here, and then you see it in Spaceballs. And any other comedy she was in, she has really good comedic timing. And they worked so well together that's easily a reason to recommend this film, is just to see them work together. Their timing is perfect together, and you will see the beginnings of John Cusack's long history of playing uniquely lovable eccentrics really take off. It really begins here in The Sure Thing.
It really does.
Continues on in the same year in Better Off Dead. But we'll talk about that movie some other time.
Yeah, we actually will. This is a classic plot for a reason. Boy meets girl, girl hates boy, boy somehow endears himself to girl, boy or girl almost messes everything up because of some X-plot, MacGuffin thing. And then girl discovers boy loves her and she loves him. It's well-worn, well-tread, and it works.
It certainly worked well for Rob Reiner in When Harry Met Sally.
Yes.
The exact same formula.
And then, Fade to Black. And obviously the most famous of these is It Happened One Night. You've already mentioned that. Mm-hmm. And The Sure Thing does a fantastic job of making this premise work. So despite Cusack's young age, you would think it would be awkward. I mean, what is he drawing from for this role? It's clear Reiner. He managed to pull a nuanced performance out of him because he was a young actor. He hadn't done a lot. And his comedy timing was great. But where else is he going to learn how to get all this stuff out?
John Hughes. I saw
I credit
Rob
Reiner for this performance.
Making John Cusack, turning John Cusack into John Cusack, I would be more than willing to bet Rob Reiner had a lot to do with it.
Absolutely. It's clear in this movie. And while I think Anthony Edwards would have done a fine job in the role, he was actually given the role until John Cusack auditioned for it. I'm glad Cusack got it here because I think that weird little maniacal, I don't think maniacal, that weird edge he has.
Right. But I don't think that the chemistry between Daphne Zuniga and Anthony Edwards would have been nearly as good.
I really don't know.
That's true.
But I think we needed that little weird thing in Cusack that comes out.
Edwards has that weird thing. He had it in Revenge of the Nerds. He had it in Top Gun. He had it in other roles.
I know.
But not on the level of John Cusack.
Right. I know we did that star turn of him a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But he really did get kind of regulated to second role in all these movies. And I feel a little bad for him. But anyway, since we know the story and we know the ending of this movie, that's just flat out. You know what kind of movie this is.
It's true.
I still encourage you to watch it and focus on the journey. Focus on what they do, the little things that make this work. The supporting characters. There are numerous people who come in and out of the story and make a huge difference in whether or not you're going to like this movie. The dialogue is perfect, even from those little side characters.
Yeah.
They make or break a scene sometimes.
Yeah, well...
and all those withering looks. It's really in the details of the journey that make this different than all the other same road romance movies.
Tim Robbins and Lisa Jane Persky are in this movie for roughly 4 minutes.
Yeah.
They're not in the movie very long, but when the movie's over, you'll remember their 4 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. I always did. From the first time I watched it, I was like, I can't wait. Time in college, and I go on a road trip, and we get to sing show tunes. It's going to be awesome. It wasn't.
Anyway, the two of them you remember, but Rob Reiner has that. His side characters are memorable, you know, as they have been in, you know, most of his movies. Even, you know, back to This Is Spinal Tap, or some of the cronies from Stand By Me. You know, the sheriff the sheriff's wife, Frances Sternhagen from Misery. You know, you remember these side characters.
Yeah.
And
He's
God, I don't want to get into the Princess Bride shit. but yeah, and this is really, you know, you can definitely see his stamp on this movie. You know whose movie you're watching, and it's weird given the time that it came out, what kind of movie it is. But I'll talk about that in the bad. For now, though, Rob Reiner really is a hell of a director, and here you can really see him start to acquire confidence and take longer strides than he does in earlier films. And by that, I mean This Is Spinal Tap. And
this was only, 4 in? This was still pretty early in his directing stage.
Yeah. And, you know, he pretty accomplished films he had made before this. That's the truth. But this is where you really see him start to cement a style that you will see him come back to. Mm-hmm. And come back to and make it work really well. He will continue to perfect this style in later movies, particularly When Harry Met Sally, which is one of my favorites of his. I know you're not a big fan, but I love that movie. And When Harry Met Sally actually contains most of the premise of this movie in its first 10 minutes.
Let's go on a road trip to college. Yeah, it starts, doesn't it?
That's how When Harry Met Sally starts. And maybe, you know, that was him looking back on his career and said, no, I did this back then, and nobody really paid attention to it. And so I'll make it a small part of this bigger movie. That's not to say, to me, I don't think it's repetitive. I enjoyed seeing The Sure Thing, even while I was thinking, you know, this is the first 10 minutes of When Harry Met Sally. But it didn't bother me, because I think that was a story that needed exploring more, maybe. And, you know, while it was concisely told in When Harry Met Sally, I like the long version here. And like I said before, it's not repetitive. The movie he made after this was Stand By Me,
which is brilliant.
Brilliant movie, but this movie and that movie couldn't be more different if they tried.
It's about the journey,
right? Well, I suppose, but I don't know. It's not necessarily that the subject matter is so different. They're just completely differently made movies. That one has a weird breakaway short story description. Imaginative thing going on, you know, for a few minutes, and while there are flashes of that in The Sure Thing, where he has all these imaginary meetings with Nicolette Sheridan before he actually meets her. It's not something he normally whips out in any of his movies. So no, Stand By Me and The Sure Thing are nothing alike. Thank you for... wait, do you have something to say I can step on?
Oh, I'm sure I do.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Let's go. I'm kidding. I'm not going to step on your stuff.
So, great movie. But there are things.
There are things.
There
yes.
are things.
Well, I had a really hard time coming up. I've only got
did.
one in the bad, and I know you got two, and you were fighting with it.
Yeah, my two aren't really all that bad, quite honestly. So my research. Woo! There wasn't much going on behind the scenes. Now, they did have a bit of legal trouble. They had to emancipate John Cusack because he was 16 when he was cast. And this was a role about college and drinking and boobs and all kinds of stuff. So they needed to make him his own adult version, I guess. So that was kind of weird. And it was tangled things up a little bit.
Well, I mean... He would have had to have a tutor on set,
Yeah.
and he could only work for so long, which is why Reiner didn't want him.
Right.
And both casting directors like, you've got to see this kid, and so they went and got him emancipated so he could shoot as long as he needed to. And
yeah, like one of the producers ended up like being his.
Yeah, Roger Birnbaum was actually his guardian.
Yeah, his
legal guardian.
It was weird. So that kind of went on, and. There's this beer shotgunning scene. I'm sure you've heard about it or watched it yourself. That was actually Cusack's suggestion. And you got to wonder what those 80s teen actors were doing in their downtime. Or maybe not. That was all over. We know about the Coreys and all those other kids.
I have a theory about this, about the beer shotgunning thing. John Lyon, or who directed Animal House?
Oh, shit.
It wasn't John Landis. It was...
you would ask that when my brain
Ivan
shuts
Reitman?
off.
Was it Ivan Reitman or John Landis? It was one of those two. Anyway, he asked the cast if they had any kind of weird talents they could like shoehorn into the movie, like Otter juggling the tennis rackets and things like that. And I think... at a certain point, Reiner was going for that kind of feel for a certain scene, or any certain scene, and just happened to find out. But Rob Reiner's famous for finding out that an actor can do a certain thing and somehow writing an entire scene around it.
Putting it in there.
So I think that's the origins of that. I think it was he like heard that story. It's like, is there anything you can do? And the only thing John Cusack can come with, I can shotgun a beer.
I'm 17. I can shotgun a beer.
I'm sure his parents loved seeing that movie.
Yeah. Oh, I assume they know that kind of stuff is going on. And yeah. So yeah, 80s teen actors up to no good all the time, and the two lead roles here were very highly coveted and fought for, and there was just names going back and forth on all sides for both those roles. But otherwise, this was a pretty mild success. It did 18 at the box office, which was,
nothing to sneeze at in 1985 at all.
The only real issue is that it never really got above number 4 on the rankings. It was out at the same time as Beverly Hills Cop and Witness and The Breakfast Club. I don't think it ever pulled ahead of The Breakfast Club. And even though those were all out before it, they were just huge juggernauts. And so this, while a solid movie, never just picked up that steam of people remember it, people wanted to see it.
I think that The Sure Thing is more entertaining. Not Beverly Hills Cop. You're never going to touch that. But I think it's more entertaining than Witness or The Breakfast Club. Not a better movie, just more entertaining. I see you buckling up, getting ready to come after me.
I'm exactly the perfect Breakfast Club generation kid.
Yeah. You and every other chick on the internet, okay? I said it. All you broads got a problem with it, come for me.
Sorry we were in the 80s and watched movies.
Sorry. God. Okay. While this movie, The Sure Thing, is considered a teen comedy from the 80s, it kind of seems to want to have it both ways in both prestige and class and raunchy 80s comedy, and it never really hits that low.
Yeah, it doesn't know what it wants to be.
That is to say, the material here might have benefited from being placed in the hand of Rob Reiner's father, Carl, who directed Can't Buy Me Love and Summer School and movies like that, and The Jerk. I mean, let's not. But not excellent director. Carl Reiner was an excellent director. Don't get me wrong, but not on the same level as Rob Reiner when it comes to drama or prestige or a classy-looking movie. I mean, that's simply all there is to that. This wants to be a grown-up comedy that is above the John Hugheses or Carl Reiners or the likes of, say, Savage Steve Holland, just to pull a name out of a hat, and a director who worked with John Cusack famously in 2 movies. Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer. Truth is that you really can't turn out a teen comedy of the 80s without a little immaturity. And this movie wanted to be mature. While there is a tiny bit of immaturity. Which, you're turning out a comedy of any kind, there has to be some... It can't all be highbrow.
Right. Not when your market is 19-year-olds.
Right. This is a somewhat drier outing in the genre than most movies most comedies that came out in the 80s. That's not to say it's boring. It's a different kind of movie. And I suspect that whenever I've brought this movie up to people, they say, "Oh, it's that movie where John Cusack stood outside that chick's window with the boombox over his head." And the truth is that Say Anything is not a comedy in the least. It's almost completely a drama with some comedic elements.
Right.
This is a comedy that has a few sterner moments in it. So yeah, you can't really have it both ways.
Yeah.
Do you want to roll in the dirt, or do you want to?
Yeah, I don't know why people confuse Say Anything and Sure Thing. They're not alike. And
other than having Cusack, both of them, and the female lead having dark hair, I really can't.
Yeah, totally different.
Ione Skye and Daphne Zuniga are nowhere near the same person.
No. But anyway, again, I struggled with these bad points, but unless it's a period piece, Rob Reiner tends to make very dated movies.
I had not thought of it before I read your little bullet here, but you're absolutely right. I cannot argue with you on this point.
He's never been someone concerned with creating a timeless look. He's perfectly okay setting it in whatever time period it happens to be.
Unless it's a period piece.
Right, unless it's a period piece. And then he gets those right on the nose.
Well, he did. There was one, A Few Good Men, he did, but because he was using someone else's very closely guarded source material, Aaron Sorkin. He's not going to... I mean, I think that one's fairly... looks timeless because it's all military.
Yeah, it's military in a courtroom, and it's really hard to date those.
Right.
But this, for one thing, the fashion look, it's 80s California, goddammit.
Well, shit, they played in 80s, and I don't mean like an 85. They played from 81 to 85 music, every music cue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, looking at it, and there's references that... And this maybe just can't be helped, but there's references the modern audience just may not get. But anyone under 35 is just not going to understand some of the things going on in this movie.
True. Yeah.
The letter to the Penthouse Forum, for instance. We all know what that is. Even if we had never looked at the magazines ourselves, we know we are well aware what the Penthouse Forum is.
I own some of the collected Penthouse Forum letters, so whatever. My mother doesn't listen to this podcast. I'll say whatever the fuck I want.
Hey, this is coming on my dad's birthday. He's going to know.
He's not going to listen to this either. And if he does, he'll think it's hilarious. He'll be like, I had that too.
And the Penthouse Forum letters play an important plot point in here. It's
not an important plot point. It's a throwaway, but it's pretty funny.
It's a reoccurring point.
True.
And these kids are not going to be like, what is going on? So things like that. Like, I often have to remind our teenagers when we're watching things that there were no cell phones. These situations cannot be solved easily back in the 80s. And people forget that. And so sometimes you have to remember how things were not available for easy rescuing or for solving problems. It's a little different. And of course, there's a lot of hitchhiking going on, and you just won't do that in today's world. We can't hitchhike.
Hold on now. They actually examine that point in the movie.
They do.
And it leads to one of the funnier things that happens in the entire movie. John Cusack acting like he's completely unhinged. And it is supremely funny.
And I'm not saying it's safer today or safer then than it was today. It's not. It's about the same. But you just don't hitchhike in today's world. And it's weird because I remember hitchhiking when I was younger, and it was normal. And I don't know if it was safe, but we did it, and we were fine. I got a ride in a semi, just like they do in the movie. It's, more than once. It's just, there's things.
I don't know how you're not dead.
I ask myself that a lot sometimes too. But there's things that go on in this movie, visual things that are said that just maybe modern audiences won't understand the references or what they mean or the significance they play.
I don't know. You're recommending an 80s comedy here. I think your audience is going to understand that there are certain references they're not going to get.
I hope so.
And I think this movie, while not devoid of them, obviously, I think the ones you brought up is literally all there is.
Perhaps, but if you don't know what a penthouse worm is, maybe you should go research it. You might enjoy it for non-porn reasons.
No, you'll enjoy it for porn reasons. But we are Two Geeks in Bed, the internet's only non-porn website. So, why don't we get to our favorite scene?
Yes.
And on rewatch, I knocked around with like 5 of them because a lot of these really stood out.
There are some great dialogue.
But before we started watching the movie again, I'm like,
credit card.
I suggested 2, and then I came to the credit card, and you're like, yeah, I'll do the credit card. So when we watched the movie again, I was like, shit, we got to do the credit card. Because you reference this line all the time. I hear anytime a credit card is involved in any kind of conversation, you say, but Dad said it's only for emergencies.
Or that doesn't work on this lock. Things
Right,
like,
that too. Completely different type of line.
So-
I'm quoting a line that's actually in the clip we're about to play.
While they're hitchhiking, it rains.
Yeah, they're sitting on the side of the road and it starts raining, and
They're in the middle of nowhere.
they break into this shed to get out of the rain, and they're really happy with themselves until they realize this shed has no roof.
And they're still in the rain.
Yeah, and there happens to be a trailer off to the side, and that's where this scene picks up. So this is we're calling this scene a real emergency. If it plays. Come on, baby. Played fine a second ago.
Yep. You broke it.
Over there, there's a trailer, come on! It's locked! Good! This is very good! It's important that this place should have an airtight security system in the middle of nowhere!
Wait, am I have a mail file? I have a credit card. I have a credit card.
Credit cards work in a completely different kind of lock.
I don't think you understand. I have a credit card.
You have a credit card?
I have a credit card.
You have a credit card.
Oh. My dad told me specifically I can only use it in case of an emergency.
Well, maybe one will come up.
I saw this movie 32 years ago in the theater. I have never forgotten that scene.
I know. It stood out to me. This and, of course, the mooning untied load scene. Those are the two that I always remembered.
Untied load.
Or unsecured load. The mooning scene.
Oh, yeah. Well, Tim Robbins tends to stand out in any movie he was in,
Yes.
apparently, from the beginning of his career to now. So let's get to last week's trivia, which I believe was yours.
Yes, from the Unnameable. And the question was, what book is Randolph reading while they're in the library at Miskatonic University? And it is a actual real book. You could go down to your local library and look for. It is A Study of Folklore. I
Yep.
can't say the word.
Study of Folklore. Yeah, it's you can actually find it on Amazon for about $12.
Yeah.
Which I will probably do in the future, just to say I have a movie prop. So this week's trivia: John Cusack actively sings 2 different songs in this movie. What are they?
They're from two very good scenes as well.
Yeah, they're for very good scenes, and you'll remember them. And one of them almost ended up as our favorite scene on here. So, yeah,
that's a great scene.
yeah, both of those scenes are fantastic. One of them, while he's in the bar meeting new people, they decide to strike up a song. So, okay, so where can you find The Sure Thing?
You can't stream it. Am I correct?
You can't stream it. I've looked around for places to stream it, and it just can't be found.
You might want to check the calendar releases. Maybe it'll pop up. I don't know.
Yeah, I got a feeling this might turn up on Netflix here, there, Stars, somewhere like that, some on-demand service like that. It is available on both DVD and Blu-ray. Usually they have those 80s collections of certain movies, and The Sure Thing seems to be in there, but I'm not sure why. But yeah, it's usually packaged with like John Hughes
some
movies.
Kind of Wonderful or some crap like that.
Anyway,
yes, I said crap.
It is available on Blu-ray. The Blu-ray is a little on the expensive side, around $17, and that's if you can find it. You're not going to go into a store and find this.
You're going to have to order it.
It is probably worth owning once again, just to watch Daphne Zuniga and John Cusack play off each other from the beginning, when she really loathes him and then manages to make him hate her before they get on the road. Right up to the very end, it's something worth seeing, worth owning, I think, and watching more than once.
Yeah. Now, it is, like we said, it is on DVD. You can always rent it. People still do rent DVDs. I don't want to cross out if you're into that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, you can actually rent the disc itself from Netflix.
Netflix. You just can't stream it. So if you're still a renter, do that. Most of these movies you can rent. Just do that. If you don't want to buy things. I don't know why, but
why don't you tell us what the next episode is?
Ooh, it's a fun one. Cutthroat Island.
Yes, and it will definitely be the next movie because we've both seen this movie several times. We're both big fans of it, so that will definitely be the next movie. We only call audibles once or twice a season, so
yeah, and that's when I get all weird about something. Sometimes I agree, and then I watch it again. I'm like, well, no, I can't.
No, this was mutual. So, that movie sucks.
It's usually my fault. I'll admit it.
But Cutthroat Island doesn't suck. And
No,
Sure
it
Thing
doesn't
suck. So until then, I'm Memphis Pez.
I'm That Weird Girl.
This has been Find That Film, The Sure Thing.
Find That Film is a Two Geeks in Bed production. Written, performed, and produced by Mammoth Pez and That Weird Girl. This and other Two Geeks in Bed podcasts can be found at iTunes, Stitcher, and our website, twogeeksinbed.com. Be sure to rate and review us so we know how we're doing. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. We are Two Geeks in Bed. Thank you for listening, and be sure to let us know what films we should find.